the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports Podcast. I am Paul the Prophet Dawalibi. Welcome. I'm joined today by my friend and co-host, the Honorable Judge Jimmy Baratta. For those of you who are new to the podcast, welcome to the official podcast of esports. What we do is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry. For our regular listeners, thank you guys for tuning in every week. Thank you for all the love, the 5-star ratings and reviews. You know, hundreds, thousands of you have left reviews. We know so many of you love listening to the podcast every week. If you haven't yet, because we know so many of you still haven't, go leave a review, share the podcast with a friend, family member, colleague, someone you work with. It really helps others to discover the show, and we appreciate it. Jimmy, how you doing this week?
Paul, I'm doing great. I hope everyone listening is having a good week as well. You know, if you're listening to this, there's a good chance that Paul and I are either in Boston for PAX or at FTX Salt for a big crypto convention. So definitely going to be on the road here, but awesome opportunity for anyone that's at PAX. You know, look around for us. We are going to be presenting live on the Bumblebee Theater at 7 p.m. Eastern on Friday night. So, you know, we record on Wednesdays, but you guys will.
That's where you want to spend your Friday night at PAX, I think. I mean,
yeah.
Forget about dinner. Forget about doing anything else. 7 p.m. Sorry,
Theater. No, well,
I know you're just doing your job, plugging the show. It's okay. I'm the one cutting you off.
Well, I love meeting with our audience, with our fans in person, and it's so wonderful to have these events. You know, E3 is unfortunately canceled, but PAX is in full swing, full force. And again, if you're listening to this, you're probably Friday or Thursday, so we'll be in Boston. Look for us.
I will say also we're going to have fun guests at PAX, so we invited some really exciting people who are going to be part of that show. I don't know when we will release that live episode, but it will be an episode that you guys will get to listen to or watch. We'll probably put it out, audio and video at some point. So if you can't make it to PAX, that's fine. But if you're there, make sure to come say hi to us. I also don't want to forget, Jimmy. Every Wednesday evening, we do a live stream, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. And so many of you who come to that, I think, have a lot of fun with it. And we wish more listeners, more of you would come participate, ask questions. Instead of sending me questions, you know, between podcasts, come to the live stream, ask the question directly. It's always more fun when I get to respond directly. Jimmy, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to kind of tease some of the people that we'll have on that PAX.
No, don't tease it. Don't tease it. They got to come to PAX.
Figure it out. Yeah.
No. And the you know, the Crypto Bahamas conference is an interesting one. That'll be fun. Less fun for our viewers because it'll be you and me in the Bahamas.
Work is really, really tough right now, guys.
Really tough. But I think it's telling when we are practically opening that conference, and it's a panel on gaming and Web3, obviously, because that they want to talk about the intersection of crypto and gaming. But when gaming is basically opening the conference, I think that's pretty good.
Flattered to be there, and that one I will tease. You know, President Clinton, Rick Fox, Lakers great, Tom Brady will be
Rick's going to be on my panel with some other very fun people from the gaming space.
So a lot of great content coming out of Holodeck, as you guys are familiar with. But let's not delay this week's episode any longer. I think we have some great guests today, and I'll kick it over to you, Paul.
We do have again. I feel like I say this quite often, but it just keeps getting better and better. And I guess as we grow, the guests get better and better. And this week is absolutely no exception. We have, I think, two of the most exciting guests we've had in a very long time. We have none other than Rob Moore, who is the CEO of Sentinels, and Riley Jamison, who's the VP of Marketing for Sentinels. Both of you, welcome to the Business of Esports Podcast.
Hello. Thank you for having us.
Hello. Happy to be here.
Guys, for our listeners who maybe don't know about you or about Sentinels, and I know that's probably not that many people, but if they don't know, would love a bit of your backgrounds, how you got into gaming, why you got into gaming, what the backstory behind Sentinels is, what you guys are focused on today, just a bit of the Rob and Riley story and the Sentinels story.
Well, I spent most of my professional career in the movie business, the last 11 years with Paramount Pictures, and spent a lot of time building brands, was involved in the launch of the Avengers series with Marvel, and had 3 sons that were obsessed with video games. And as I watched them and the way they interact with video games, it was just very compelling to me that they watched video games the way they watched an NBA game. And so I had a friend who was in a similar situation with kids as well. And we kind of looked at this space and said, we want to figure out a way to be involved in this space for the long term. And so in the summer of 2016, someone came to us and said, there's a spot available in League of Legends. That if you guys move quickly, you can get in. So we bought a League of Legends team 2 weeks before the summer split and managed to not get relegated. And then we've gone through a number of different iterations over the past few years, but then really settling in on the current strategy, the Sentinels branding, and the path we're on a few years ago. And, the really taking off with our Valorant team and the performance in Iceland last year and now the last 12 months has been an amazing trajectory and growth for the brand and the fan base. And so it's been, a great buildup. And then the last 12 months have just been amazing.
Wow. Yeah.
Such a cool story.
My background actually kind of started in photography at Riot. I was running photography for the LCS, so sort of was shooting all the photos for all the teams in the LCS, all North American photography, and kind of working with teams on an individual level on branding and some of that stuff. And then began talking with Rob at Phoenix One and sort of found a way to help the teams more directly, something beyond just photography. Really was so interested in marketing and growing individual brands, and it's kind of like a perfect opportunity to come in and really, I think Rob and I really aligned on what he wanted to do with the brand, and kind of my vision for it too. So came in there, and I guess the rest is history. Really, sort of pioneered some of these new kind of content strategies, some of the social media strategies, and like Rob said, it's been kind of a wild ride, especially the last year or two, taking this to the moon, huh?
Guys, I love, obviously there's so much to this story to unpack into both of your backgrounds. Rob, I want to start with you and specifically the movie business, going from the movie business to gaming. How much has transferred directly? How much is completely different, right? Like what are the differences and similarities that you've seen, and how much of your past have you been able to apply directly?
Well, a lot of it transfers that, dealing with talent, that negotiating with superstars, going through this last year as we've had players just blow up and turn into some of the most popular players in the world. And so helping to build the Sentinels brand, helping to build their brands, and then, managing talent and how to keep on a path to be, what has been the number one organization in Valorant pretty much since the launch of the game. And so that element of dealing with talent and superstars and trying to find people who have that ability, right? Because the dynamic of someone who can become a star, that is something that in every industry you're always looking for. And so definitely an element of that is transferable. And then, as we've talked about, in terms of building a brand and trying to come up with our positioning and a voice for Sentinels, a lot of that has been because I was at Disney before I was at Paramount. So I've been through a lot of that of how do you have a consistent voice so that you can communicate a brand to your audience so your audience knows who you are and what to expect and what content to expect from you. And I think that's the thing that Riley and his team have done an amazing job of. I'm constantly joking with Riley because he gets he's gotten more and more and more discriminating on what could post to where he and I, it took probably like 24 hours till he finally relented when I said, when Tom Brady first retired, that because we had done a meme when Lionel Messi went and changed and left Barcelona. And I was like, all right, Tom Brady's retiring. We've got to do a Tom Brady meme. And so, again, it had to go through a very rigorous internal control process of, all right, can we do something fun and that the fans are going to engage with? And so, fortunately, after I twisted his arm, I think we ended up with like 50,000 likes on Instagram.
Yeah,
So,
who knew Tom Brady in a Sentinels jersey would go far and wide?
The only problem is you had to take that back literally like probably within that 24-hour period, just about.
I guess, we missed, actually, Riley, we missed a beat because what we should have said is, Tom, we're sorry that the tryout didn't go better with Sentinels, but
that's it.
At least you have Tampa to fall back to.
Yeah, Tom, it's been great, but we're exploring other options. Yeah.
Can we talk about superstars a little bit? Because I'll admit, I follow certain games that I'm interested in. I'm not a League of Legends guy. I've never been a big League of Legends player. But the first I heard of Sentinels personally, where like it really was on the map for me, was Fortnite World Cup. Obviously, Bugha, winning that, representing Sentinels there. I was surprised that just in your intros, Fortnite and that wasn't mentioned, where both of you sort of leaned on League and Valorant. Where do you put that sort of as in the pantheon of important moments for Sentinels?
Oh, it was probably the most important moment until we won Iceland, right? I mean, it was the moment that really put us on the map as an organization, and was just an amazing accomplishment. It was, we had got into the Fortnite space really early on, and we had signed Bugha shortly after his 16th birthday. But it was such a whirlwind, but because he won the first qualifier, and so he was headed to New York, and we had another player, Aspect, who qualified as well, and we sent their families to New York, and everyone kind of figured they were going to have a nice long weekend and that they'd probably go bring back $50,000 each, and we'd continue on our way. And then in one of those moments where you're suddenly like watching it develop, right? Like after we won the first round, you're like, oh, wow, okay, he's going to be competitive here. And then suddenly you start to realize, I'd say it was probably after the third round, it was like, he's going to win this. And then trying to play catch up with, oh, wow, this is something. We certainly didn't go into the weekend expecting one of our players to, he's 16 years old, had never competed in front of an audience, is in a packed Thrash stadium. And like, it was not a big deal. And he just walked out there and rolled the competition. And so that was definitely, like I said, the first time where him being on the Tonight Show, him being on the Today Show, and suddenly he was everywhere and our brand was everywhere. And that was really the jump start to Sentinels. And like I said, in terms of our trajectory, that really got us started. The reason that we were so focused on Iceland is because for whatever reason, and using Twitter just because it's the easiest numbers to kind of track, right? We went from like 10,000 to 50,000 to 100,000 followers from kind of launch to Bugha winning the World Cup to when we first started to really pop in Valorant. Yep. And then we went from 100,000 to 600,000 Twitter followers basically in the last year, because that dynamic of going to a team sport in an international competition is just rare that North America goes and brings back a title. And I would argue us winning Iceland is one of the 5 biggest accomplishments of a North American esports organization in history. To go and beat a team from Brazil and a team from Korea and 2 teams from Europe and go undefeated in Iceland, and definitely it captured the imagination of an entire sport. And so that the reason I think we talk about Valorant is we have become like the unofficial voice of Valorant on Twitter. So, Riley and his team will accept that this first split was definitely the most disappointing of our Valorant team so far. But his group managed to keep that leadership position by creating a pool party that was basically like, all right, well, we aren't going to Iceland, but at least we're going to have a pool.
I love it. No, it's the equivalent, like being from NA and having success in any FPS game. It's like you're the guy under 6 foot in the NBA, right? Like there's everything working against you to begin with. No one expects big wins for any FPS game from North America. So I totally get it. But Rob, maybe you could bring me sort of into the boardroom after a Bugha win, after an Iceland win. Like how much of the business strategy changed, or right to Riley, the marketing strategy changed after something major like that happened, something unexpected and major like that?
Yeah, well, I'll talk to the strategy and I'll let Riley talk to the marketing. But certainly from a strategy standpoint, again, those are the moments where it's like, all right, now is when we need to make a big investment in marketing the organization, putting a big push into the merchandise for the organization. Bugha's win was the first time really that buying a Sentinels jersey, and that became a substantial revenue source for us, right? Before that, it was much more promotional and marketing. And that was the moment where it turned into, all right, merchandising is now actually a line of business for us, and selling Sentinels jerseys and Sentinels t-shirts. Suddenly people wanted to own that brand and connect to that championship. And so as we're looking at the company and in where we're investing, where we're putting our focus, that really showed a level of, okay, here's definitely a place we're going to get substantial amount of revenue we hadn't been in the past. And then really reinforcing a business philosophy of making investments in new games and trying to take a leadership position in those. And I'd say that victory in Fortnite and that World Cup is definitely a direct path to us being first in Valorant and taking a big leap in Valorant and committing to the game when the game had basically been out for a month.
That's interesting.
Absolutely fascinating. And I want to just jump in because this ties in with what I would love to hear from you, Riley. My favorite part was the comparisons to Tiger Woods, who had won the Masters that year, and and Bugha's purse comparison there. And I'm sure you guys saw that, leaned into those memes. Would love to hear about the marketing strategy, but also that particular stat and what you guys did to really grow the brand and take advantage of all of that hype.
I think that's a great point. And I think that stat really helped a lot of people sort of bridge the gap between esports and traditional sports, because like there's such a barrier to entry, and it looks like kids playing video games. But then all of a sudden, when you can take something like Tiger Woods' purse and then, say, well, like Bugha made even more money winning that, we're like, hold on, now I got to take this seriously, and like, I think that like a lot of people really, really woke up because of that. Man, on the marketing side that day at the World Cup, I know we had marketing people there in New York with him, and the day before, we're doing media and we were getting reports like, hey, like Bugha's kind of like lapping kids in the qualifier heats. Like he's feeling pretty good. So like, check out tomorrow. And then like Rob said, first game, first round, it's like, oh my God, like this kid is so good. This kid is so good. And like that first year, that Fortnite World Cup, I'm not sure we'll ever see another esports event like it. It was really one of a kind. Like so many esports things are team-based and organization-based. And this, I think, just by design was any kid anywhere in the world. Fortnite was by far the most popular game in the world. Any kid could participate. It was sort of this like American dream writ large on a global scale, and so like there was such a strong narrative to it. And for Bugha to come out and not just win, but he was pretty much, they were handing him the trophy while people were still finishing the last game. You know what I mean? Like he was so far ahead. Like it was such a decisive win. Like that was massive. And I think from the moment he lifted the trophy, it was all hands on deck, like it was, I think I was on sort of like a soft vacation in Oxnard. I was like, I'm on the phone, I'm driving home. Like I got the whole team on call, like I remember designing championship shirts on a laptop right there. Like, it's time to move. And I think the next month was just ballistic, just flying. And I think one of the things we've done even before Bugha, across other esports, and one sort of thing strategically that's helped us succeed is we've really fostered, like Rob said, sort of like the superstar status. And I think that's a real key to success, is like when you're with an esports team, is sort of identifying and facilitating stars on your team. Like, it's definitely one aspect to have a great voice and a brand, but you're going to run into stars if you're doing things right. People that are great at the game that fans love, and being able to capture and deliver those fans, like, okay, you want the Tiger Woods of this sport. Well, we can make the claim that this is it, and here's what it looks like. And we'd had success doing that on teams in the past. So I think when Bugha really blew up, we were in a great position to go, okay, well, we know exactly how to do this next step right here. Like we're gonna give you exactly the type of content you want. And like, this esport, Fortnite wants a superstar, and we were pretty well positioned to deliver on exactly that. And I think that's sort of, the reason not only that Bugha succeeded so well, but that Sentinels was able to sort of grow with him, because it felt like such a natural partnership, and that we were helping deliver the fans exactly what they were looking for from him.
And I will say the amazing thing about Bugha is, like I said, that level of success at 16, but that, like, this year, like in the last 6 months, he won 2 major titles again in Fortnite. So he has managed to prove it wasn't a fluke, and to maintain that level of excellence has been truly amazing to watch for a kid who was so young to have so much success, and to really stay with it with an obsession of, I want to stay the best player in the world.
Can you speak to more what it's like once you have a star of that caliber, the difference, I suppose, in recruiting new talent as well as managing the existing talent, and kind of what changes, when you're pre-win, right, versus now that you guys are just stacking successes? What's kind of changed in terms of the organizational management culture, but particularly with the talent that you have, as well as the talent you're attracting?
Well, I think it was kind of a progression, right? Like when we first got into League of Legends, it was just people who had no team. So therefore it's like, all right, you're going to give us a shot. Awesome. Right. So that was kind of how we got into League of Legends in the very beginning. But then as we started to show that, Eric Ma and Charlie Lipsy have been in this with me from day one. Eric is actually the person who, when Riot was requiring the prior ownership to sell, Eric's the one who went to China, tracked down the person, basically got the team and brought it to me. And I said, can you put together a business plan and a roster where we won't get relegated? And he showed back up the next day with a business plan and a roster. And I'm like, all right, let's go do this. And so we've consistently shown our ability to put together a top team. But I think with Bugha winning the World Cup, and then people seeing how we helped facilitate him explode into a superstar, that when Valorant was forming and a lot of high profile people were getting into the space, that when they were looking at organizations to sign with, we weren't viewed as a second choice, right? That you're looking at Cloud9 and TSM and Team Liquid, that Sentinels was now viewed by the community, certainly in terms of the representatives and the players, as good an organization as you could go to. And so that really elevated us into a top tier, certainly from a community standpoint of, all right, this is an organization that can win and can help me build my brand if I'm successful.
Yeah, the superstar angle, I think, is an interesting one. And I have to ask this question. I ask it to every esports team that comes on the show, esports org that comes on the show. And I look at esports org sort of as existing on this spectrum. And on one end of the spectrum, you have, and I'll just use some other teams as examples, maybe like a TSM or a Team Liquid, where the focus, and we've had some of them on the show, the focus very much is on winning, right? They care about putting and fielding teams that will win consistently. And if they don't bring home a trophy, this is failure in their minds, right? And on the other end of the spectrum, you have, and I'll put the other extreme, sort of like a phase where it's it's more of, it's about the content and, you know, the cars and making videos that go viral. And I mean, no one really cares if FaZe wins or loses. You know, it's all about the content and the hoodies and whatever else, right? So you've got sort of what I call hoodie orgs on one end, and you have these very sort of performance focused orgs on the other end. Where does Sentinels exist on that spectrum? Or if you don't agree that it should exist on that spectrum, where does it fit relative to others?
Well, I think we're trying to cherry pick those two strategies, right? Which is that we're not trying to compete in 18 games. You're not going to be able to service 18 games. So we're trying to be great in every game we're in, right? So we have the World Cup champion in Fortnite. We have a team that last year was the best team in the world consistently in Valorant. We have now a team in Halo Infinite that is certainly a top 3 team, and using that as an entry point to fans, but then feeling an obligation to then give fans amazing content to engage with. And then using those superstars to create content and to create merchandise so that fans can connect to those players. So I think as you look at what those other orgs have done, and it certainly is an advantage to us being the newest of everyone you just mentioned, right? To kind of look and see what other people have done and have no ego about saying, all right, we can borrow strategies that we see working from other people and then really dive into them. And so as you look at then what we've accomplished in social media, a lot of that is Riley's team really connecting with the fan communities in those sports that we are succeeding in. And like I said, getting to a place where even though we were out of this last major tournament, that the fans were basically looking for us to be the voice of the tournament. And so the amount, we have more engagement in our Twitter during a tournament we're not in than the collective of all the teams that are in the tournament. So that's where we really feel like we've evolved, which is that the way we got in front of the fans was by winning, but now we feel an obligation to entertain them.
Absolutely.
Riley, is Twitter the platform of choice for you guys?
You know, we definitely use Twitter in a very unique way. I think it is the platform that we use to primarily communicate. But we have independent strategies for every platform. I mean, TikTok is our fastest growing platform, 1 million followers in a year. You know, Instagram is unbelievably successful. Twitter just does something very unique, and it's very useful to us, I guess, is a good thing to say. And a lot of the conversation as a whole, Twitter's uniquely positioned to facilitate conversation compared to Instagram, definitely compared to TikTok or YouTube. So, you know, I think acknowledging it as that and using it as that to a place to facilitate messaging and communication that's been really successful. Yeah, I want to touch on what you said earlier, because I think that was a really interesting question of, like, you know, what is sort of more successful to, you know, to be focused on winning or to be focused on your marketing and your superstars. And we've kind of thought about that a lot. And I think it's important internally to have this drive to win and to be dominant in every game. And we certainly do. And like Rob said, like, Charlie and Eric are probably the best scouts in all of esports. And I think that's led to a lot of our success. They found Bugha, they found this Valorant team, they found every player that we have. And that definitely drives us. We're ruthless about wanting to win. Where I see, I think, a lot of teams stumble from a marketing perspective is when you make winning your forward marketing narrative. I think that's really, what's the word, maybe dangerous in a way, because you're so clear about what your goals are that it gives fans and people looking from the outside an opportunity to see when you've not met your goals. So when you say all we care about is winning, and then you get 4th place, suddenly you're in this really precarious situation where it feels like you've disappointed your fans. And so something that we always try to do. Like, yes, we're always going to try to win, but our narrative can't just be, hey, we're here to win or we're going to be sad. Like it's always coming here like, we're here to, we're going to put on a show. We're going to deliver you these personalities and these people that you come and love, like we're facilitating, delivering them to you. And then what's so kind of wonderful about that strategy is when you go and win on top of that, suddenly that's the rocket fuel right there. You've sort of got this winning message, and then competitively you dominated too. That's where I think people really see the growth there.
But one of the best things, like I said, that Riley's team has done is taking, and again, this kind of position in Valorant and really embracing it so that even when we lost, the fans were as engaged as they ever were. And I'm going to say, weirdly, in this last month, they're at their most engaged, even though it was coming off of the moment where our Valorant team had the toughest split. But engaging with the fans, entertaining the fans, and that creating this pool party that became like bigger than life, but then was able to morph into the place where we could then engage with our sponsor, bring content to the fans that was completely consistent with what they've been seeing, but a great way to introduce. So when we just announced a year partnership with GFuel and brought GFuel to the pool party, and the engagement on that video and the consumption of that video was that it was entertainment. It wasn't, even though it says that it's an ad and it is clearly identified as sponsored content, the fans just saw it as content. And I think that's one of the great things that we've accomplished is finding ways to entertain the fans with content. And as Riley said, when you win at the same time, it's amazing. And occasionally fans goof on us when we're not winning. But the level of engagement that we've had, at some point, at first, the pool party was really focused on North America. And then the fans were kind of looking at us. And when somebody got knocked out of the European qualifier, they're like, wait, why didn't you invite them?
They demanded it.
And I said to Riley, I go, people view us as like the Valorant spokespeople for the Western world. And then I realized, no, people view us as the Valorant spokespeople for the world. And so that has carried on and only grown as we've gotten toward the championship coming up this next week. But it's also been amazing to watch the other orgs just embrace it. And so we've had this interesting rivalry develop with G2. And so when G2, like when we got knocked out of the qualifier, on Monday, G2 posted to us, hey, Sentinels, how's your week going? Just kind of rubbing a little salt in the wound. So when they lost a map, we posted, hey, G2, you're halfway to the pool party. And then we created this like fake chat that was on our Twitter of like G2 and basically created a post that would seem like Carlos, but then Carlos just engaged with the tweet himself anyway and kind of chimed in and said, I hate it here. Like, because we had basically brought him to the pool party and he said, F Sentinels. And then we posted that for him, but then he actually chimed in and was like, I hate this pool party.
Right.
So it has been great to see that engagement, and the fans have, really loved it and just been with it and, kind of looking at us to say, all right, we want you to entertain us and you're doing a great job. And I think that's what, Riley's team has just done an incredible job of.
Exactly. I think this pool party has really taken a life of its own. And I remember when, it looked like, hey, we might be knocked out of this tournament that, people, it's our first international tournament we've ever not attended as a Valorant team. So, that task kind of falls to me like, okay, like how does Sentinels handle, like a tough moment from a marketing standpoint, losing? So I'm like sitting here with like, okay, I need to make losing cool all of a sudden, like that's really tough. And so kind of like went through and this idea that like, we're not sad. It's not a big deal. We got our flip flops on. We're by the pool. We're having, like once I kind of like workshopped and landed on something that felt strong and workable, I realized that not only us, but essentially every team except whoever eventually wins this tournament is going to go through this same difficult moment. And I notice a lot of times teams shrink a lot at that losing moment because it's difficult and fans are disappointed, and started thinking like, okay, well, like if I feel like I've solved this problem for us, which was difficult, and took time, like why don't we offer this strategy and create sort of a soft landing for every team, at your most difficult marketing moment, instead of being sad, we're going to shoot you an invite and a pair of flip-flops to our pool party. And I think that's honestly what made it click, is like a port in a storm for a lot of these teams that were going through something difficult. Like, you don't have to shrink away. You don't have to go silent. You can maintain the mood and the vibes. Like, get in here. We're having a party. None of us got in, so we're all watching the games and having some GFuel.
But it is sort of a shot at them, Riley, right? Like, you are sort of taking a shot.
Oh, it's great.
But that drama does well in sports and esports. And I've always said there just wasn't enough. Like, esports has always been too clinical. And I used to joke at the NYXL here, the Overwatch team in New York. I'm in New York. It was 6 players, all from Korea. They're tremendously skilled players, but they're trying to be the team of New York. Like, I said publicly and on the podcast, like, put a couple of guys from Brooklyn on there, right? Like, even if you lose some games, you're going to get something entertaining out of it. So I love this. Like, I'm curious how much of your marketing thinking is around, like, can I get a bit of drama? Can I create some drama here?
95% is creating drama.
It is like yesterday's post. So, like, if you look at our Twitter today or yesterday, there was a post that has 30,000 likes, which is us goofing on Ninja, rebranding and creating a new logo. And if you look at Ninja, who has 10 times the followers on Twitter, he has the same number of likes on his announcement of his new logo that we got goofing on his new logo. And a lot of the fans basically saying, this is where I look for people. This just gives me all the information that is around in esports. And this is like the perfect attitude to engage with it. And so now at the same time, right, that definitely means there are people gunning for you and people who are at times get tweaked. Famously, one of the North American Valorant teams didn't have a particularly strong showing in the event and suddenly got very upset about this, where everybody else has just kind of gone with the joke and had fun with it. And basically, as Riley said, it's the moment where you're most depressed, but at least it was just a way to have some fun with it. They did not take it that way. They were upset at us, and Optic, I think, posted last man standing, and we basically opened the door for them to join the pool party. And their players got super tweaked about it. We're kind of like, okay, this is not that aggressive of an engagement, versus G2, who rented a plane and flew it around Berlin with a big sign that said F Sentinels. And so, I think G2 is probably a level farther just in terms of how extreme they go. But I think, as we look at other orgs, there's certainly one from a branding standpoint and the way they engage with their fan base. Like, Carlos, who runs G2, has no problem goofing on his own organization or his teams, right? And like memeing on big throws in big matches and just having fun with it. Because I think when you get back to the core of this, right, this is all about how do we entertain people, right? Yeah. That's what you come and watch esports. You want to be entertained. And so I think that's what we've tried to do from a marketing standpoint and a branding standpoint, is how do we help the fans have fun with esports? And sometimes you're having fun because you're watching your favorite team win. And sometimes you're having fun because you're watching your favorite team goof on other teams. And so that's what we've tried to do. And I think we've really hit a great place with it over the last 6 months. And you saw it in the first quarter Twitter analytics, where our average engagement was first in the world. But not only was it first in the world, it was a massive first place and way ahead of orgs like FaZe Clan and 100 Thieves, who you said are very much focused on content. That's certainly with FaZe, that's their absolute leadership place. And that our engagement was 4 times theirs in the first quarter of the year. And as you said, a quarter where it was actually a down quarter for our teams from a competitive standpoint. And where that branding, which was much more about how do we have fun with the esports space, how do we entertain you in the esports space, really came to the front.
our engagement got higher in a tournament that we're not in, which is, man, I challenge anyone else to do that. That's a really tricky one. I think Rob kind of like set it up like nicely in that, like, recognizing that fans want value, like they want a storyline, like they want something interesting. So recognizing that, like, we can sort of use our online identity to start beef and make it interesting and sort of like, use our chips, we're all in on this. So like, if we talked a lot of smack and then we lose, we look bad, right? But like that adds value to the fans because now we have skin in the game. Like if we lose, like we actually risked something here, and that made it more interesting for fans. And I think people really latch onto that. And that's why, even if we're not in the tournament, they're happy that we're there. We're kind of the main characters of Valorant. I think they're glad that we didn't disappear just because we're not in the tournament. We're still a part of it.
I'm going to have to take a lesson here, guys. I'm going to, as part of the promo for this show, we're just going to cut up bits and pieces that you both have said to create some horrible beef, some just completely offensive beef.
There you go. Don't you dare post that. We'll sue. Yeah.
That will not be hard, because there's no question that if you follow our social media, we definitely have a swagger to it and definitely have an attitude to it. And I think some other orgs got tweaked that swagger didn't diminish when we lost. And it was like, no, you can't continue to have that attitude. We're like,
Rob, let me take the business question to sort of its ultimate limit here, which is fast forward 5 years. Okay. If you're looking at the revenue mix of your business 5 years from now, what is the ideal mix in your mind between, let's say, these three things: merchandise, like brand deals, sponsorship, things like that, and tournament winnings? Like, what would be the optimal mix in your mind for your org 5 years from now?
Well, you left out one big revenue piece that is definitely one that we're focused on and the publisher focused on, which is creating in-game content with the org, right? So like the new Halo game, that I'll give Microsoft a lot of credit, that they really made a big investment to say, all right, we're going to relaunch Halo. Halo is an esport. They launched with a giant tournament in Raleigh, and part of the launch of the game was the 10 partnered organizations all had in-game content, so you could buy a Sentinel skin, so that when you first downloaded Halo Infinite, you could immediately play as your favorite organization. And so publishers have been developing that content, and certainly consistent with other elements of what we see happening in the digital space, but letting you create your image in game, and therefore you can have your suit be the organization, your gun skin. So having that ability to connect to your favorite organization, even as you're playing the game, not even when you're watching the game. And so that has been a really fast growing element of the business. And like I said, the publishers have put a big focus on that. Apex, which is the one game we hadn't talked about that we're also in, that EA is starting to roll that out. And like I said, Halo doing the best job of making it part of their game launch and really making it part of connecting players to organizations, so that you go from being a Halo player to a Halo esport fan. And so that is become a very big part of the revenue stream, and I think will continue to grow because it's the most natural way for a publisher to connect their fan to the organization. And then I think sponsorship, because I spent a lot of time in marketing in the movie business, and the hardest group of people to find are, how do you find teenagers and 20-year-olds? They just have totally different media habits than their parents did. And so here you have an avenue, as we said, that we're developing a daily conversation with these folks of people that are the hardest to reach. So when we can have organic connections, so like GFuel, which was oddly the most organic with us because our players were big fans of GFuel. Riley had a great soundbite where I think it might have been Zoms, where it was like, well, this team's not even this team, we don't even need to drink our GFuel today because they're not at our level. So
the
we
level
don't,
of disrespect.
we don't even, that's the level of disrespect is we don't even need our GFuel today. And so having those places where sponsors and product are very organic to the team and the organization and the fan base, there's a natural connection. And so I think that will continue to grow. And like I said, the in-game content will continue to grow. And then I think the other element that Riley and his team have done an amazing job of is creating merchandise that, again, allows the fans to connect to the players. So like having a TENS hoodie and a Shazam t-shirt and a Shazam phone case. And so giving your fans merchandising opportunities to connect with the fans, prize money being so volatile that, yes, when Bugha wins a $3 million first prize, there's a windfall, but really not counting on that as part of the business plan and viewing that as, the great wins when they come in, but viewing the other as building blocks that we can definitely continue to build our brand, which will lead to those revenue opportunities. So that's how we look at it, is we're building our plan for the next 3 years.
I love the focus on fun and entertainment and engagement, right? That's why the brand activations work better with you guys, right? Than I would argue some other orgs. Because you see, like you've got sort of your hand on the pulse of what the audience wants to actually see, and what they actually want to, how they actually want to be entertained. And esports hasn't always been completely successful at that, right? So I love to see that, guys. We're almost running over on time here, so I want to make sure we get to everyone's favorite new segment. We call this Judge Jimmy's cross-examination. The idea is to get a little bit behind the scenes in terms of who you guys are as people, as gamers. Judge Jimmy, take it away.
Couple quick questions. Paul stealing my 5-year plan one that I saved for the end. I love the answer, though, and I love that we had more time, Rob, for you to dive into that. So let's get some quick ones out of the way. First question to both you, Rob and Riley. What is your favorite game to watch or to play?
Well, the one thing we didn't talk about, and I'm not answering the question in the spirit of rapid fire, but I'm actually known for the person in the organization who watches the most competitive sports and plays the least. So I'm a huge sports fan. I grew up watching esports, and now I couldn't watch more Valorant, more League of Legends. I still watch every match from the LEC, and I watch every match for the LCS, and I watch pretty much every Valorant match in North America and everything in this international tournament. So I'm definitely the leading consumer of esports content. Riley definitely is the one who can answer the gamer question much better than I can.
Oh man, yeah, we'll have meetings, and Rob will give us the update on, hey, did you catch what happened in the Korean League of Legends games last night that came on at 4 a.m.? We're like, Rob, when will we have time to watch Korean League of Legends? He knows all of it. He's seen it all. In terms of watchability, man, I've watched a lot of esports. I don't think anything compares to Valorant. I mean, and you can go back to CSGO before. I think it's just really hit the nail on like the most watchable, tense moment, this 5v5 and it dwindles down and you get the 2v3, the 1v2, the clutch moments. Like just from a spectator sport, I think anybody, even if you're not familiar with it, very quickly can come in and really like just grab on to what's happening. Compare that to like Overwatch, which I think is really fun to play, but from a spectator standpoint is really difficult. Even if you're like way in it, it just doesn't have the same, it
doesn't have the drama.
It doesn't have quite the same drama, the intensity. Like Valorant's a little more like football, you know what I mean? Like once the ball snaps, like it's extremely intense until the ball is down, right? And magic can happen in those little in-between moments. So I think, it's been so great watching Valorant so closely because like, boy, if you want your heart to beat fast, like be the first place person at an international tournament watching live on stage. Like it'll kill you. In terms of what to play, I think I really like Apex Legends. I don't know if you guys play Apex Legends. That game is so fun and so fast. You can just churn them over. It's also a really fun one to watch. Man, to play, I think that studio's done a great job with that game, and it's so fun to play. I'm also better at it than I am at Valorant, so that might affect That might affect my opinion, right?
Most people don't know this. I did get an offer from what is now a tier 1 org to play Apex. So I really do love Apex.
Really?
Yeah. The whole shtick was going to be I was going to be the oldest guy in esports. Riley, I feel like you could do wonders with this. Jimmy, go ahead.
Hey, let's talk after the show. We can get
we'll have to have a follow-up. You guys.
Well, now you said that. The fact of the matter is, when G2 first started their beef, and at some point I goofed back on Carlos and G2, and their fans started calling me Grandpa. And then I basically I said in our next staff call, I said, "Am I actually the oldest person in esports? Is there anyone else over 50, with a substantial role in this space?" So there you go. That's
esports is only 10, 12 years old.
You and I, Rob, after this can compare life insurance plans.
Oh, man. I don't know how to transition out of that one. I'll just try my best. We've heard a lot of talk of GFuel today. I'm going to ask for your go-to gamer snack or your favorite flavor of GFuel.
Oh man, I'll start out. There's this flavor of GFuel called Shiny Splash. Oh my god, it's blue. It's I don't know what flavor. It's kind of be like a lemonade something, but it's fantastic. We were filming TikToks. It's such a weird story, I guess. We were filming TikToks for GFuel yesterday, and I had to make GFuel and film it for the TikTok. We're putting it to some atrocious meme sound because that's how TikTok works. And then I was like, well, I'm not going to waste this. So I think I was right before I was in a call with Rob. I just downed this much GFuel. I was just like, I hope I'm not being crazy on this call, man. I feel like I'm ready to go pro game right now.
See, I have a sweet tooth. So for better or worse, the product that I have most become connected to are the flavor crystals. I really like the sour cherry, and just find myself kind of constantly just instead of eating some candy or
dry, no water. This is intense.
Those. It's like the old Pop Rocks where you just go on your tongue.
Yeah, Rob's dry scooping GFuel before every podcast there. Yeah.
It was a selfish question, guys. I got to try some of these out. I'm looking for the next one. I'm going to give you one more because we have two of you today. Going to make this a little bit broader than normal as well. I typically ask for your favorite crossover IP that has success in gaming and in traditional entertainment, but I'm going to broaden it to also kind of gaming collaborations. So examples could be like The Witcher or Arcane on Netflix. It could be Call of Duty and Die Hard, the Die Hard skins in COD, or the new Snoop Dogg skin that came out today, Wednesday, Fortnite Balenciaga, etc. Just favorite crossover IP or kind of blend of worlds within gaming as that center point.
So now I'm gonna unfortunately not cooperate on this question because I'm gonna say it is the thing, right, that certainly Charlie Lipsy in our org is the most obsessed with, and that's the one last thing we haven't accomplished yet is to have that big brand crossover from outside of gaming. And so that is the thing that we are most focused on saying, all right, this is the one big thing we still have left to accomplish. So I'm not going to tip my cap to anybody else.
not going to give them any kind of lip service, nothing. Don't even give them the time of day, Rob. I love it.
I'm going to obsess on us getting one that will be on somebody else's list next time.
No pressure, Riley.
As soon as we do, that'll be my favorite. Will definitely be ours. But I'm glad you mentioned Arcane because, first of all, Arcane was absolutely phenomenal, and I watched it. I think it actually became sort of a cultural point, that everybody was talking about. But not only did I enjoy it so much, and we watched every episode, but it actually got me to reinstall League of Legends and playing League of Legends again. And I think when you think about their goals for that project, you can't find a bigger success than that. Watching this, seeing all the characters and the IP that I loved, it's just that's it. I'm booting up right now. I got to get back into the game. I got to play these characters that I'm seeing on screen. What a success that was.
I love that one.
That wraps it up for this week. Rob, Riley, thanks so much, guys. Back to you, Paul.
Rob, Riley, first of all, thank you. This is the most fun I think I've had on the podcast in a while. Some great stories here. If people want to follow you guys individually, reach out for business or follow what Sentinels is doing, what are the best places they can find or follow you guys?
Well, I'm Rob Moore Esports on Twitter, and certainly through the Sentinels main account, which we've certainly been very obsessed with driving people to.
Yeah, follow at Sentinels for everything if you want to be a part of the banter on Twitter or any other platform. I'm at Riley James on Twitter too. I'm a Sentinels retweet robot, so you'll get your feed either way.
I love it, guys. Thank you so much for being on the show. Jimmy, thank you guys. Thank you as always. Thank you everyone for listening, tuning in every week. Really appreciate it. Don't forget, Wednesday evening, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time, we do a live stream. We cover all the news from the week. It's a bigger cast and we do it live with you guys. So it's a lot of fun. You get to ask questions live, participate, get in our faces, challenge the prophet himself. We welcome all of you to come Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. And also don't forget, follow Business of Esports everywhere on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, you name it. Everywhere you get Business of Esports content, hit that follow button or subscribe button. We really appreciate it. Thank you guys. Don't forget, the future is fun. We'll see you next week.
Thank you so much.
Bye. Thanks everyone.